Hello, welcome everyone. Welcome to Connect 2017 Day 3 training. My name is Adrian Stevens.
And my name is Mark Smith.
We're part of Xamarin University, and today we're going to talk about connecting apps with Xamarin to Microsoft Azure. We're going to show off some really cool features of Azure, we'll connect some services to a Xamarin mobile application.
Absolutely.
Before we do that, let's talk just a little bit about Xamarin University. So Xamarin University really is the place to learn mobile development through Microsoft. And there's really a lot to talk about with Xamarin University, a lot of offerings at Xamarin University.
Yeah, that's right. We've got a bunch of free classes that you can start with. So if you're just beginning in your mobile career, you can actually take free classes with Xamarin University, walk through and learn all the basics, all the way up to actually building applications.
Absolutely, building cross-platform applications and Azure Attach.
Yeah, that's right.
And then when you're ready to move on, we've got a subscription-based model, and it's live training. So this is live training online with instructors, with Xamarin University experts. Tons of content, over 70 courses. Learn everything about from code sharing, cross-platform strategies, architecture, enterprise strategies, mastering UI, all these different platforms. Lots.
Right.
Almost too much to talk about.
Yeah, I think actually that's one of the main benefits is you're actually not just working, we call them trainers, but really they're developers. They're expert Xamarin developers that really know their stuff. And they'll teach you about how to properly construct an application, how to test it, how to debug it, how to diagnose performance issues, and all the deep innards of working with Android, iOS, and Windows, and also Azure, of course.
Pretty fantastic, which leads us on to our next point. We have office hours.
Yeah.
So if you have something that's not covered in the course, so you have a question, you want to go deeper on topic, you can actually interact with these instructors, these experts, one-on-one in these office hours.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So you can bring your own app. So say, for instance, you've got an application and you're struggling to get something to work, or maybe you're just trying to decide, how do I do this particular aspect of the application that I'm trying to build. I can actually bring that to one of these Xamarin University developers, Xamarin University trainers, and I can have a one-on-one session with them where I can ask my questions, they can give me maybe some sample code, they can kind of lead me in the right way.
Or even have them diagnose my own code.
Yeah, that's right, so that I have a better chance of success. Because ultimately, our goal at Xamarin University is to make you successful as a mobile developer. And
part of that is certification. So really, Xamarin University has the certification for mobile development for Microsoft, and this is a really great way to prove that you understand the technology, you're able to build mobile applications. Yeah, and the requirements for certification are pretty extensive. I mean, we really want to make sure that you know and understand the topic, and so you can actually we've got 2 certification levels. The first one is through the free content, so we certify you as kind of knowing the basics or kind of the core principles of mobile development. Right, you understand technology and you can build an application.
Yeah. And then you can transition to the higher level certification, which we call developer level certification. And that's where you actually interact with live trainers, you do homework assignments. I mean, there's elements to that actually are significant, but at the end of it, you really know your stuff. Right, you're able to architect your application, you're able to choose your development strategy, use the right technology for the task at hand. Yeah, that's right. In fact, we found a lot of the guys that have gone through the certification are people that we then rely on to even do some of the training and some of that. So we've trained those trainers through the certification process. It's pretty great. Absolutely. And then once you're certified, we have DevConnect. And DevConnect is really all about connecting developers to potential employers. A really great place to showcase, well, I guess, the skills, showcase your certification, and allow potential employers to find developers with relevant skills in their area. Right. And part of the goal there is I, as a employer, can actually go to DevConnect and find developers in my area that have the skills that I need in order to help me make my apps that I want to build. Pretty fantastic. Always challenging. So really train, get certified, and get a job. Yeah, come to university.xamarin.com. It's pretty awesome. All right, so what are we going to talk about, Adrian? We're going to talk about Azure Cognitive Services. And really, the story I think we want to get across here today is connecting Azure to our mobile applications. But we often think about Azure Attach as this is sometimes a bigger task. Sometimes even a little bit daunting. People are thinking about building a back-end infrastructure, which of course you can do in Azure, and that's really powerful. But there's a lot of things we can consume in our applications that don't require extensive development time. We can leverage services, we leverage things that are pre-built in Azure, pull it in and add a lot of intelligence to our mobile applications. Right, this is one of the cool things I think that we're kind of seeing just in application development in general. I've been building apps for a long time, and I look at what we used to try to build, say 20 years ago, and what we're trying to build today, and there's a big difference in terms of not just the tooling, but even just what we're attempting to do. And I really think a lot of these cognitive services allow you to make your applications more intelligent, to give them capabilities that you wouldn't actually be able to do on your own, right? Because I mean, we're basing these on Azure services that are in the cloud using massive computing resources available.
Right. And things you couldn't actually do on the device alone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But not even just on the device, but even you yourself as a developer, to be able to kind of have access to the kind of resources that Azure has in the cloud, to be able to kind of capture this data and then provide some information about it so that you can then make decisions.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool stuff.
It's exciting, yeah. It's leveraging expertise and intelligence.
Yeah.
For people that have spent probably years, decades mastering these
things. It's
pretty
cool. So we're going to look at 5 basic pillars within the Azure Cognitive Services. So we're going to see some things about vision, and this is actually one of the areas that we're going to use in our app today.
Yeah, we'll show this off. Really
That's
exciting.
Right. There's also services related to knowledge and kind of connection knowledge. So being able to, for example, one of the cool ones in the knowledge section that I really think is pretty awesome is being able to look at 2 different things. Maybe that's research papers or documents or manuscripts, and it will actually tell you how similar they are. So it'll do some actual analysis and try to figure out, you know, I could see universities using this for plagiarism, for example.
Absolutely.
You know, I know my kids, when they're writing research papers today, they don't go to the library with a card catalog and find books. They go on the web and they say, what is blah? And then they just start writing stuff down. And so there's much, much more prevalence, or at least opportunity, to copy things. You're not really inventing something new. You're using something that was already there.
Absolutely. Yeah, knowledge, there's one more I just have to mention I think is really exciting. And the knowledge services are all, I think they're all in preview. They're all pretty cutting edge. But there's recommendation features in here, so we can build recommendation engines. So,
yeah,
you know, based on your products, maybe your customers' purchase strategies, you can use the knowledge APIs to build recommendations to give them intelligent choices. So not just about upsell, but providing the services and features to your users that they're looking to use.
Right, because they may not know about some feature that you have that you are pretty certain that they would want to use based on what they've done in the past. The knowledge APIs can help you identify that. That's pretty cool. We've also got some language features, so this includes things like translations. So you guys have all seen apps like where I take a picture of a sign that's in one language, or maybe it's a menu in one language, and it goes through and figures out what's all the text that's in there. That's part of the Vision API. We then run it through translation services and present it in your native language so that I don't need to understand, or at least I don't need to understand all the ramifications of that, and I'm not going to get surprised when I order the octopus, for example.
Absolutely. And kind of hand in hand with that, there's the speech API, the speech services as well. So this is detecting speech, so doing speech analytics, so you can talk to your device, talk to your applications,
right.
Have it decode not just what you're saying, but the tone.
Right.
You know, and along with the features is the detecting emotions. There's just the cognitive service level here is really fantastic,
yeah.
and a lot of you can see too, they pair well together. You're likely to combine the speech and the language APIs together. As you mentioned, sign detection, combine the vision and the language APIs.
Mm-hmm. And then of course we have search. Yeah. So that's Bing search, so you can do multiple levels of search, and we'll take advantage of some of that today as well.
Absolutely.
So let's just focus a little bit on the vision side. So we mentioned a couple of particular things that you might want to do with this, but the Vision API is pretty cool because it allows me to take a picture or a photograph of some kind, send it up to the cloud, and have the Azure service, do some analysis on it and figure out specific details about it. So it can tell me, for example, that it has a house in it, or that there is grass in it, or that it's green, or that it's daylight, or it's outside. I mean, I can get specific characteristics in a generalized sense about the elements that are present in that picture, how many faces there are. As Adrian said, there's APIs or services that you can use to be able to do emotion detection. So I can take a picture of somebody's face, for example, Adrian, and see that he's bored. Or I can take a picture of something else and see that they're excited. And so I can get a sense of what's the emotion level. It's pretty cool stuff, of the things that you can do with Vision. I can also send up pictures, for example, and get reports back as to what type of content is this? Is this something that would be safe for my family to look at, for example?
Absolutely.
And so we can do all these sorts of things. And we're really going to focus on 2 of these services today. We're going to be using the Vision service to be able to give us a general idea of what something is inside of a picture frame. In our case, plants.
Right. And so you mentioned, though, it's higher level. You know, it's grass, it's plants, it's a house. We'll leverage the computer vision service to get more detailed information from the picture based on our criteria, based on our data.
Right. And so there's a second version here called the Custom Vision service that's in preview. And the idea with the Custom Vision service, Adrian, is I can actually train it with images that I'm aware of, and I can give tags to those images, and then I can hand it an unknown image, and it will use analysis to compare it against what it knows and return me probability matrix based on what it already knows about and what this image contains in it, and tell me, does it have the things that I'm interested in based on tags.
Really exciting.
Yeah, it's very
I
exciting.
actually can't wait to show it to you because it's a really powerful tool, and it's really easy to use.
Yeah, and so just as an example, and kind of as a little bit of a reminder, we've done a couple of sessions today, and one of those was building a garden center app. And so the idea was we're going to create frugal gardens. We're cheap. We're hiring kids to be able to be our workers, and our concern is that customers might come in, ask a question about a plant, expect this employee to know something about it, and this employee is a 16-year-old kid that knows nothing about plants and doesn't care about plants, frankly,
right.
But they do have their mobile phone. And so we've commissioned to build an app where I'll be able to take a picture with my phone and I'll be able to get details about that plant.
By just taking a picture. They're not entering search terms.
That's right.
Really exciting.
Yeah, and so we're going to use the custom vision service here, and we've trained it for 3 different types of flowers. We've got roses, orchids, and tulips.
Right.
And so we're going to use the service, and when we send up a picture, it can actually send us back tags to say what it thinks is in this photo. And sometimes it'll be way off. That's partially because we haven't completed its training.
Right.
It's like a Padawan, right? It's not complete in its training yet. But sometimes it can be pretty quick. So let's actually just break right there, and let's go over here and look at the portal. And so I'm going to go over here and pull up our custom vision service. Let me log in.
And this really is an exciting system. And this is in preview as well.
It is. And so you can see I called it Identify Flowers. You can create new projects. And the way that you get to these, by the way, if you're interested, there's a Cognitive Services section. And so you can just go to azure.microsoft.com and you'll see Cognitive Services here. And so you can see even the same little sections that we just talked about here. I went to Vision, and then from Vision I can go to Custom Vision Service, and then that's even what's on the slide. Yeah. You can then see exactly what you need to do here. We can upload images, we can train, we can evaluate, but there actually is a more generic vision service as well called the Computer Vision API. Let me just go to this Try Computer Vision API. And the idea is that you can send up an image to it, and it will hand you actionable data about it. So, like for instance, that there's grass, or that it's outside, or it's nighttime, or whatever it happens to be.
And this is done without training.
This is done without training. So this is just an API that's going to hand me back some specific bits of data about that. That's exactly right. And there normally is a use with an Azure subscription. Maybe if I click on this one. There's actually one, yeah, here it is. So see it in action. So here's just an example of what you can do with this. So notice that we have an image in here. This is the kind of data that I can get back out of this image. It tells me that it's 99% certain that there's a train in the image, that the name is platform, and that's also fairly high. Station confidence is high. It's indoors, 92%, subway, 83%. And then pulling is 43%. So it's not sure about that one.
Right, and a little bit because of the blurring here. But you can see we're not getting a single data point. We're actually getting a lot of metadata from this picture analysis. Really, really quite powerful.
And we can leverage this in our application to then make decisions. So we can decide, do we want to go further with this image, or do we have enough confidence to say this isn't what we're looking for, or maybe that it is? And so we have our Garden Helper app. And just as a reminder, I'm going to switch over to the UWP app because it's a little bit easier to launch and shut down. This is a Xamarin Forms app, and it has 2 different options. I can take a photo, or I can use an existing photo. So I've got some sample photos that we already have.
Perfect.
And we just got some mocked data right now. And so if I take an existing photo and I just pick one, it's going to go ahead and say, I think it's a rose, because that's what our mock data says. It's a rose. We don't know anything else. We randomly are generating some stuff here.
So currently everything is a rose.
Everything's a rose. I could take a picture of Adrian and he would be a rose.
Which would be accurate.
Yeah. So we've got this app, and let me just real quickly show you we're going to start with this identify picture interface. And it just has one method on it called identify async. And the idea is we would pass in the picture as a stream. So it's something we're loading off of disk or off the internet or something like that. And then it's going to do some analysis on it and figure out, is this a plant? Is it a flower? Is it grass? What is this? And then once we've done that, we will then send it up to our custom service.
Perfect.
So the first thing I'm going to need to do here is I'm going to need to go ahead and create a new .NET Standard project or PCL or shared project that's going to have all of my code to deal with this Azure service.
And we could use any of those three, but
we could use any of those three. I've actually already got a project that I created, which is a .NET Standard project. So I'm going to go to Add Existing Project, and Garden Helper. Oh no, After is what I want. Got two different versions here, and I've got one here called gardenhelper.services.azure. And this is a .NET Standard 2 project, which is awesome that we now have this support in pretty much every popular .NET variation that's out there.
Really exciting. And just quickly, if you're using PCLs, this is probably the direction you want to move into, and it just really gives you this expanded API service. So really excited to see this integrated with Xamarin. Okay,
and so there's a couple of things that come out of this. First of all, anytime you use any of these APIs, you have to have an auth key. And so typically what you'll do is you'll go into, so try computer vision, and you'll get an API key here. This API key then gives you access to the service. It's tied to an Azure account, so if you're needing to do a lot of searches, you'll get billed for that. There's a cost. There's a certain number that's free, and then there's a certain number that will cost you money.
Which is typical of these services as well. A lot of these you can try for free and test the waters and see if it meets your needs.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we've already got all the services sort of built out here, so I'm going to start with the Vision service. And I'm going to go ahead and pick up just this little piece here. So this is the method that I'm actually interested in. Now, there's a couple different ways that we can actually invoke these services. Every single one of the cognitive services is actually just a REST API. So if I want to, I could just use HTTP client, format the proper packet to send up to the service, pass in my auth key, send it up, get my results back as JSON, parse it out, and do something with it.
Which really means we can use this with just about anything.
Just about anything. However, there are some of the services that actually have NuGet packages to let you get to them. So for example, the Vision API has one called Microsoft Project Oxford Vision. Fantastic. All of these are open source. You can go into GitHub and find them all. There are some updates that are coming, so we're working with the teams that produce these SDKs. Some of these are a little old, or not old, but
well, things move fast.
Things move fast.
We see a lot of updates, and so it doesn't take just a couple days, a little time
to
catch up. Yeah.
And so I know that there are some updates that are coming, but this is the one that we're using here, and it will interact with the Vision API. But I just want you to be aware that we didn't have to use this. We could just use the REST service directly if we so chose.
Right, and I mean, really, these NuGet packages simply just wrap up the REST service and just give a friendlier API.
Yeah, and so this particular NuGet package just basically creates a class called Vision Service Client. That's a wrapper-run HTTP client. We tell it what we actually want to retrieve. So if you look here on the returned data coming back from this, notice that it has description information, it has tag information, it has image format information. We can decide what aspects of that data we'd like returned. I'm just asking for tags. That's all I care about. I don't want any of the other metadata to be generated for this, because I really just want to know, is it a plant? Right? I want to identify up front, is it a plant? And if so, then I'm going to go ahead and take it a little bit further.
Get the data we need for our application.
I pass in my subscription key and then the URL. So a lot of these Azure Cognitive Services are actually geolocated, and so they'll put you on a particular URL that's based upon the region that you're in or the region that your Azure subscription's in. And then I'm just going to call a single method called analyze image async. I pass in the stream of the image. I pass in the features that I'm interested in, the tags. And it will return to me what's called an analysis result. The analysis result just has all the metadata that it generated from that image. And so the things I'm interested in here...
It's really just a model object, a DTO, really.
Yeah, the thing I'm interested in here, and the only thing I'm really going to get back is this tags piece here. So that's what we're going to actually utilize.
But actually, flip back there just for a moment. It's quite interesting to see the level of detail from that class.
Yeah.
So again, we see things like faces. The adult, I believe, is whether it's a possibly a risque image or not.
Yes, correct.
So really, there's a lot of detail we get out of here, and again, we'll just use the tags for our application.
Yeah, and just to be clear, faces, what it's going to identify is the rectangular where it thinks a face is
the region,
in the image.
Yes,
it's not going to tell you who it is, but it will tell you that it thinks there's a face at that particular spot.
But we could train it later to do that.
But we could train it, and in fact, that's what you're seeing in a lot of photo services these days is kind of this idea of being able to group my photos based upon commonalities within the photo itself. And so you could build services just like that with these cognitive services, which is pretty fantastic. So we're going to use this particular API, and we're going to go ahead and get our image. Now, this is an implementation of the identify picture, and so I want to go ahead and use it. All of my implementations are registered in one little spot here, so we just have this one method where it registers with our service locator implementations of the abstractions. And so I identify picture currently is just this mock. I'm going to go ahead and comment this out.
Excellent.
And let's just go ahead and add a reference. So I'm going to add a reference to my Azure Service API.
Right, so this is the .NET Standard project you just added.
This is the .NET Standard project I just added. And what we'll do here is, there it goes. It's now added. I'm going to copy this line and just replace that mock service with a real service. And so we'll say Azure dot, and we want the Vision service. And then we'll delete the rest of that. And so now it'll use my Azure Vision service instead. So when I run the app now, we won't be using mock data. We'll actually be using the real Azure data. So let's go back to our Azure service here, and let's put a breakpoint. Let's just stick a breakpoint right here. And let's run it again. Should rebuild and pull in everything. Now, there's some NuGet packages, obviously, that are being used here, and so it may take just a second to go ahead and build. But once it does, and it's also building iOS and Android and UWP as well, so the build chain is significantly complex.
Absolutely. It's actually still quite quick.
Yes, it is still quite quick. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to say existing photo again, and let's just use tulips this time. Say OK. So here we are inside of our Azure service. I'm going to go ahead and just step over that. And notice that I get my description back. Right? So here's my description. Let me just go ahead and pull it up in the debugger, just so we can kind of see what's in this.
And we see the analysis on the Azure side is also fairly fast.
It is, yeah. It came back pretty quick. So, I mean, those are big servers that are there.
Yeah.
So we can see that we don't have any adult information. We don't have any categories or colors or descriptions or faces. Those are things that we could have gotten if we had passed those visual features in.
Right, we didn't ask for them.
We didn't ask for them. We did get a bunch of tags. So notice our tags say it thinks it's arranged. So there's an arrangement in it. It thinks that it's colorful. It thinks that it's different. Okay. It thinks it's colored. All right, so it has lots of colors. That's nice. It thinks it's a plant.
Excellent.
All right, so it thinks there's a plant there, and it thinks there's several.
So this is impressive.
Yeah, this is metadata that we got out there because we sent a bunch of pictures of tulips in there, or at least a picture of a bunch of tulips.
And if you think of the scope, of the range of different pictures you could send to the service, it's really amazing it can pull this kind of data out.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really, really cool. And so what we're going to look for here in the tags is, does the name contain plant or flower? Because sometimes it'll identify even that there's a flower there. In this case, it didn't. It just said that it's a plant. And if the tags don't say that it thinks there's a plant or a flower, we're going to go ahead and kick back an error and say, you know what, we don't think this picture has a plant in it.
That's all we're interested in.
It's a picture of Adrian. It's not a plant. And so we'll go ahead and kick that back, and then our user interface will display the error. Okay, so that's the first step. And so we've gotten it to correctly identify a plant. Now let's talk about the Vision service. So notice what it didn't do. It was unable to tell us what kind of plant.
Right, and we've got very generalized categories, which makes sense, again, with the scope of work the service has to do.
That's right.
But we'd love more fine-grained information, and we'd love to tailor it to our application. So we're looking at flowers, so maybe we want to know flower colors or flower type, or maybe we're interested in the age of the flower, what stage of production it's in. So there's lots of different things we could be looking for in these photos.
That's right, and so the custom Vision service allows us to essentially provide our own training data for images, associate tags to those images, and then we can submit new images into the system, and it will then tell us with probability matrix what it thinks that is based upon what it knows. So we trained it for flowers. We didn't put a lot of flowers in here. You can see we have orchids, roses, and tulips.
Right, so we're training for flower types.
We're training for flower types. We only have 3, so we're frugal. Only 3 different types of flowers. You can only buy 3 things here. And we don't have a lot of data here. So typically what they recommend is to have at least 30 images as part of your training set. I just pulled in a bunch of data from Bing Image Search. The other thing I'm going to just caution you on is really you should own the data that you're putting into the service. In this case, again, I just pulled it from Bing Image Search. I'm not sure who owns the data. Right. In theory, if we were really building this service, what we would then do is we would go to the actual garden center and we would take photos of the plants there on the grounds. We then own that data. We can then put it into the image search system.
And quite honestly, this likely give us better training results as well. If
it would.
Our data is going to be
because these are images of different sizes, different quality, different depth, different types. That's going to throw some of the training off. So essentially the way it works is you come into the system and you add new images. So it starts out just being empty. I add images. It asks me to basically upload them. I can then take each image and I can then assign a tag to it. or even multiple tags. So I could say this is, the president, and it's also Barack Obama, or it's the president and it's also Donald Trump, or whatever I would like to do.
We could have flowers and dogs.
I could have flowers and dogs.
Flowers and kittens.
Yes, exactly. So it doesn't all have to be homogeneous data. I can actually make it a variety of different data types and just associate different tags to it to identify what's actually in it. Once I have all my images, then I have to actually train it. And so by training it, that's where the system's going to go ahead and do all of its analysis and processing, and it's going to generate a metadata bank off of that data. And then once I've got that, then I can start submitting things. And what we're going to need really are the subscription keys. And so notice here is the training key. So there's an API I can use to be able to push new images for training purposes along with tags. And then I have a prediction key, which is where I would push up an image and say, what is this? And it would hand me back those tags.
So really powerful. And so presumably we could build an app if we were doing this as an actual commercial application. We could build an app to push up new pictures. So we could train, we brought in new stock. We could add new flower images right to our database and improve our training results.
We could. And so back to manage NuGet packages. For this particular one, I'm using this Microsoft Cognitive Custom Vision Prediction. So that's the NuGet package we've added to be able to interact with this particular vision service. And here is the prediction. It's really simple to use. All you need is a prediction endpoint, and that is your prediction key, so that's what comes out of that portal. And then you need to know the vision prediction URL. So that's pretty standard. Again, it's going to be based upon where your service is actually set.
Oh, this is tucked away in here somewhere.
Yeah, it's tucked away in here, and I forget exactly where that is. I think it's actually when you first create it, it tells you what it is. Yeah. And then the other thing you're going to need is your project GUID, which is right up here in the URL. So you'll need this little value here. And what you'll do is you'll set up a prediction endpoint with the credentials. You'll set up your URL. You'll then call predict image with HTTP message async, passing in your project ID. So the project ID here is the GUID that's represented there. And you'll pass in the image.
Of course, the image to analyze.
This isn't an awaitable thing because it's asynchronous. Clearly, we're doing network I/O. We don't want to block the UI thread on that, so we're going to go ahead and do an await. And in fact, the processing we're going to do after that doesn't actually require that we be on the UI thread because we're just returning a result. And so we're going to go ahead and call configure await false on it as well. Where they're going to return the body, which is an image prediction result model.
Right, there's a type defined in that NuGet package.
That is a type defined in the NuGet package, and you can see it's got a GUID, it's got the project ID, the iteration, date time created, and the image tag predictions. So this is what it thinks about the photo.
Pretty fantastic. So, and really, this is almost exactly what you design if you're doing this yourself. This is the information you want back.
That's right. And so notice here we've got the tag. This is our tag, so this is the custom tag we associated. Right. And it's got a probability. So it gives me a probability from some negative value, some really hideously negative value, all the way to essentially 1, which would be actually the most I've seen it be is like 0.99, so 99%. But in theory, it would go all the way up to 1, which would be 100%. And so we're going to go ahead and use this as well. So let me put our breakpoint now here, and let's run this again.
And what I love about this is it is this simple. We're not shortcutting the steps here.
Yeah.
It's that quick to go up, create the service, and then consume it in a mobile application.
Right, so I'm just going to pick, we can actually just pick that same tulips. I don't know if it'll identify it or not. We could try it and see.
Yeah, let's see.
We could do it in the piece. Okay, so we've got our piece here. We're going to go ahead and run it through the prediction service. And so we've got our predictions. It came back with 3 predictions. It thinks it's 99% certain that it's a tulip. That's good.
Excellent.
It's also 7.8 to the negative 13, or to the power of negative 30. That's a rose. So it's not very confident on that one, I'm afraid. And then prediction-wise, the other tag is, of course, orchid, and that's also a very, very much a negative number.
So effectively 0 on these, yeah.
Yeah, or not a negative number, but something that's really, really close to 0.
Infinitely small,
yeah,
right.
That's right. Yeah. So it's very, very small. So it's not negative, but close to 0. So we're only going to take it if its probability is greater than 25%. So if we're not really certain what it is, we'll go ahead and throw an exception, say, I'm sorry, I don't recognize that plant. But otherwise, we will actually return the tag that we identify. And so in this case, we're going to go ahead and order them by the value, so in other words, by the probability. Make sure that it's more than 25. In this case, it was 99%. And then we'll go ahead and return that, which will be tulip. And so if I just let this run, we should then get, I think it's a tulip. It shows me the picture, but of course everything else is not filled out because we don't have that data yet.
I'm so excited by this.
But it does know it's a tulip, and that's pretty cool.
That is fantastic.
Right, and so we could do this again. We could say existing photo, let's pass in an orchid this time. Goes off, it says, I think it's an orchid. So now our vision service is actually working with us. This is pretty darn cool. That's the custom vision service.
It's mind-boggling how much power we get for so little work.
And look at how much code it is. I mean, you're talking just about 5 to 10 lines of code to be able to access these. Pretty darn fantastic. Okay. So the next service that we actually would like to integrate into this is some search capabilities. So I'd like to be able to get some information about that plant. What is it? How do I take care of it? You know, what sort of sunlight does it need? What kind of soil does it work well in? And those kinds of things that my customers are going to be interested in.
The exact kind of stuff we might go to a search engine for.
That's exactly right. And so we're going to go to Bing Search. Bing Search has a bunch of different services available. You can do things like auto suggestions. So for example, you've all seen, like in your browser, you start typing something and it starts filling in what it thinks you're going to look for. That's essentially an auto suggest. You can do the same thing with Bing Auto Suggest API, where you can tell it information about what sorts of things that they're going to be looking for, and then you can do predictions on what they're really trying to figure out.
Right, and there's other great categories, since like there's image searches, there's new searches, things that are maybe more standard types of searches, might think from Bing Search. But the one we're going to use is the Bing, it's the Entity Search API, correct?
Yeah, yes. So the Entity Search API is in preview. We could use the Bing Search API. The problem with the Bing Search API is it's going to be a bit more broad. And so we're going to get a lot of search. I mean, it's going to be essentially a browser search. And we're
which is still powerful.
Yeah, which is very, very powerful. But what we're really kind of looking for is very specific information on this thing, whatever it is, rose, tulip, or orchid. And the Entity Search API is really cool because not only will it give me information like Bing Search will, it'll actually classify it as to a type. In other words, a data type that it thinks I'm interested in, and it will give me information related to that. So when I pass in rose, it'll actually tell me about a rose. Right.
So it's a bit of intelligence, and it's also some packaging to give the data a nice tidy package that we can easily consume our mobile application.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this is going to be what we're going to use in the app. We're going to take that tag, we're going to pass it into Entity Search, and we're going to have Entity Search then give us some search results or information based upon that. So let's switch back over here and check this out. So again, just like before, if I go over here to the computer vision, go back up to products, we can back up to cognitive services here, and I can go into the search API. And I can look at each one of these as clickable. If I click on Bing Search API, I can actually get a sense of what kind of data do I actually get. So it's kind of waiting there. There it goes.
Excellent.
And so you can see here that I can pass in something, and then I can get data about it. So in this particular case, I think there's supposed to be an image here that it's looking at. I'm not sure why the...
I think we can do actual live search here.
Network, oh, maybe. Yep. Okay. So maybe if we type in, oh, I don't know, give me a search.
How about do pine tree?
Pine tree. All right, so here you go. This is the kind of stuff I get back. And this is nicely formatted, but this is the real data. So notice we get entities, and I get information related to what sorts of licensing did we get off this entity, like where is it getting it from? In this case, it's Creative Commons, which is probably what I'd want to use. I get information about images that potentially are valid for this. And I get a description. So pine is any conifer of the genus Pinus. There you go.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'd want to know. Actually, it's not that interesting. That's why it's a frugal garden. So we're going to use this API inside of our app. And right now, again, we just have a mocked out service for this. And so in our plant details mock service, we're just returning lorem ipsum and then some basic license data. But we're going to replace this single method get plant from ID. We're going to pass in the tag as our ID, and it's going to return us a plant object that we've defined as a model. And so this has a unique identifier, a name, a description, a license, and a license URL.
Fantastic.
All data that we're going to pull out of that Entity API. So if I go back here, we actually in our, let's see, where is it? Bing Entity Search. So there's actually a, in our Azure services, we've got this Bing Entity Search piece. Now, this is one of those that I chose not to use the NuGet package because I've been telling you, you can actually just use HTTP client, and I wanted to kind of make that point. And so here, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to use HTTP client. We have to pass in our subscription key as a header value. We can then get a string back and convert it back to a search response object. And so I went and took their actual JSON object, and I created a bunch of classes to sort of model or represent that with the proper types here.
And this is quite interesting, because this is exactly the kind of work that would be done in the NuGet package.
Correct. Yeah, if I use the NuGet package, I wouldn't have to do anything.
Right, you'd have these
I
types.
would just be able to use it. And then what I'm going to look for is the dominant entity. So often when you do a search with the Bing Entity API, one entity will be what they consider dominant, or one or more will be considered dominant. And then there'll be others that are secondary. In other words, things that maybe aren't as relevant to you in terms of the search.
Excellent.
And so we're going to pull the first primary entity. And then we're going to go ahead and take that entity and create our plain object. So we'll get the name, the description, and then the contractual rules that we saw in that JSON block. So let's go ahead and put a breakpoint here. And what I'm going to do is replace the existing, in our view model here, replace the mock plant details. So we'll comment this one out. And we'll replace it with our Bing Entity Search. So Azure, and then Bing Entity Search. Okay? And that's all I have to do to actually get this to work. So we'll run it again. And it's going to recompile just these two pieces. Now, one cool thing here is, and I love this aspect of .NET standard libraries versus shared projects. So sometimes people don't know which one to choose. One thing I really do like about the idea of sharing at a binary level is my Azure Services assembly, or the project, is only referenced by the vModel project. Because it's referenced by that, it'll get dragged into all those platform-specific ones, but I don't have to go into the iOS and the Android and UWP project and add deliberate references to all the Azure stuff that they need.
Which is really fantastic.
It
of
is.
course, if we're using a shared project, we'd have to add it to all the platforms.
We would have to add it to all the platforms. That's exactly right. So let's take our existing thing. Let's pick this tulip. It'll go off and do its work. So now we're here inside of our Bing Entity Search. The actual tag that we got passed was a morning glory, which is not what it is, but that's okay. That's actually because of one of the things that we have in the Vision API is if it comes back with a hint, we take that hint.
Yes.
This isn't one that we actually know about.
A little fine-tuning our algorithm. That's all right.
Fine-tune our algorithm. That's okay. So we're going to go ahead and do the get string async. It's going to go up and come back to us when it's finished here. All right, and that's going to give us a result. And so you can see here is the result in JSON form. All right, so you can see it's just a big, huge JSON block that we've got here. We're then going to deserialize that into our search response. That's then going to give us this nice response object that will tell us about this. So notice we have a bunch of entities. This is actually what we're interested in. We have two of them. And so the first one says Morning Glory, has a description, has an image, has a name associated with it, and then it has the Bing ID. And of course the contractual rules, like what's, how is the text and what's the image licensed under and that sort of thing. We'll go ahead and grab the very first one, what we call the primary one here. And if it's not null, we're going to go ahead and return that as the plant. So I'm going to go ahead and let it continue. And we can see, I think it's a Morning Glory. Current price, we don't have our price service in there, but you can see all the details from Morning Glory. And in fact, it's going to take the name that came back out of that service, and if I do get more information, it'll pass that into Wikipedia and actually generate the Wikipedia page for me, putting it into a web browser right here. And so I can kind of get even more details if the if the customer asks more data. I can just tap that button and see the
again,
Wikipedia
it's an amazing amount of intelligence, and none of this is stored for us. Like
none of this is
all
stored
being
for
pulled
us.
down.
Yep, it's all being pulled down.
Yeah.
Now I could cache some of this off, so I might want to
Absolutely.
do some offline data storage. We could use SQLite techniques to do that. In fact, there's a class in Xamarin University that you can take that's even free that will teach you exactly how to do that. But in this case, I'm going to hit the entity each time, or the entity API each time. But that's pretty cool that I can get a whole bunch of data about each one of those pieces just by passing up that tag and having Bing figure that out for me.
Now, of course, sometimes we want to use our own data.
That's right.
And
in this case, we want to pull some pricing data, or maybe where is that plant in our garden?
Absolutely. So something that's unique to our particular application, or in this case, to our business, to our frugal garden center.
Yes, that's exactly right. So in that case, I'm going to want to store it somewhere. I could use a variety of places. It could just be a JSON file that I pull down when you launch the app.
Could be embedded in the app.
Could be embedded in the app. That's not going to give me a lot of freedom in terms of being able to change those prices or maybe have sales or things like that. So generally speaking, I'm probably going to want to put it in the cloud.
Absolutely.
And if you're going to put it in the cloud, a great place to put it is into Azure Mobile Services. So Azure Mobile Services allow us to be able to create essentially REST endpoints in Azure that include our custom data and potentially custom logic that we would like to access from our apps. And those apps could be web apps, they could be mobile apps, a variety of different things that I might be using that data from.
Right, absolutely, and this is sort of the traditional approach of things we might use to support a mobile application.
Correct.
And really, I mean, this could be an entire topic. It could be several topics on its own. But
yeah, that's exactly right. There are other sorts of things that are included in the Azure Mobile Services section of Azure as well. We've got function apps. So those are essentially bits of logic that we can execute in the cloud to be able to do some processing. They might be triggered, or we might have them run on a timely basis. Maybe it's every night I want to scan something and clean up some database stuff. We've also got API apps. So API apps allow us to essentially have REST endpoints that are like custom APIs that I may want to drive, so I can push some of my logic up into the cloud instead of having it embedded in my mobile device. Maybe it's proprietary logic, or maybe it's just really complicated and I need it to run on bigger machines than a mobile device. And then finally, we have logic apps. Logic apps allow us essentially to do like data conversion and things like that, where I can use a workflow orchestration designer.
Yeah, it's a really fantastic UI.
I can connect things together and actually get data processing or conversion or something like that done. We're going to focus most on the mobile app piece. The mobile app elements have several different pillars that are a part of it. One of them is the data pillar. And so in Azure, of course, storage is a big thing that we're going to use it for. We can use SQL Server. We can use some kind of
there's blob storage,
there's table storage. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of storages. In fact, I think one of the most complex things or decisions you have to make is which storage.
And that again, it's a big topic. And
it is.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the table storage anyway is it's very, very easy to integrate into your app. It's super, super simple, as we're going to show you. But there are other types of storage that you can use as well. We also have auth features in Azure mobile apps.
Which is really fantastic. You want to segment your data per user.
That's right. Or I can even just identify my users.
Yes.
Right? I can get them to log in via a known open ID using Facebook or Twitter or a Microsoft account or a Google account. I'm not locked to my own types of authentication, but if I choose to, I could, for example, integrate in Enterprise AD. Yes. So maybe it's my corporate credentials that I want to use. We can do that too, and we can then identify the user, which is pretty cool. And then we also have push notifications that are there. So I can do cross-platform push notifications directly through Azure and then push them out to my devices.
And again, what I love seeing here is these are the things that you're going to commonly want to use to support your mobile application. So really, really powerful suite of tools here.
Yeah, and you don't have to use all of them. You can pick and choose which pieces you want to leverage.
Which we're going to.
All of them are based on REST, and so they're all just REST APIs that we can consume, but there is a NuGet package that you can add into your app that will give you just a nice, easy wrapper around all that stuff. So we're going to look at the data APIs, and we're going to put our pricing tables in there. This is done through something called Easy Tables in Azure. It's stored in SQL, and then I can actually add data into it using either the portal, or I can import data in, or I can just even add it in via an app. And it exposes that data through an OData endpoint. So OData is a standard way of interacting with data over the web. It's basically a REST interface, but they sort of put some conventions around it to be able to do filtering and ordering and things like that, to be able to skip 10 entries and take the next.
Right, we use standard tooling with that as well, of course.
Yeah, there's standard tooling with that as well. And so it gives you kind of the SQL sort of abilities, but on top of a REST endpoint. We can then interrogate this data or work with this data through the Azure portal, or of course we can do it through server-side logic, and that logic can be Node.js, or we can use ASP.NET.
Absolutely.
So either one of those are possible. So let's look at that. I've already actually created a portal for this. So if we go to portal.azure.com, this will log me into the portal, and I can see all the services that I interact with or work with. The one that I'm actually interested in here is this Garden Helper. So when I created it, I just went to create a resource, and I created a mobile app. That then created a server instance for me to work with that has a unique endpoint that I'm then going to use HTTP to communicate with. And so that endpoint is right here, gardenhelper.azurewebsites.net. You can actually go to it. It really is a website.
It is up and running.
It is. Yeah. It is up and running.
And we could turn this into a website, or create our own custom REST endpoint off this as well.
Yes, we could. And then the other thing that I've done here is I've added in support for Easy Tables. So if you scroll down in here, you can see all the mobile stuff. We've got Easy Tables and Easy APIs. Easy APIs are like web services that are driven off Node.js entries, so they're really simple to set up. Easy Tables is just data. And so by default, the data is shared. It's just global to anybody who hits it, so the service is just open. I hit the endpoint and I get the data back. In this case, what we're going to store here is my price data. And so you can see I've got a table called prices. This is backed by SQL Server. Right, so I do have a SQL Server instance that's been created here, although I picked a very cheap tier. In fact, I think it might even be the free tier.
Which is great that we can do it with this.
That's right, because we are Frugal Garden Center.
Well, and it's simple data.
So, and you can see I've got three things in here, Rose, Orchid, and Tulip, because that's what I know we sell out of the Frugal Garden Center, and then I've got a price.
Right, this is our custom data.
Now, I can interact with this directly with just REST endpoints. And so I could go into, say, Postman, for example, put in that URL, say /tables/prices, and it would actually hand me back that data.
Right, it just exposes a standard REST API.
It is exposed as a standard REST API. However, what I've done here is I have added in another NuGet package. So if I go back to my Manage NuGet Packages, I've got Microsoft.Azure.Mobile Client. This is the NuGet package to interact with all of those services. So auth and table storage, or not table storage, but the easy tables and easy APIs. And the cool thing about the easy tables is the support that's built into the mobile client actually supports not just being able to pull that data, but being able to cache that data as well. So we call that offline access, because sometimes the data that you want is updated infrequently on the server side, or maybe you've got multiple clients pushing updates into that data. So that's actually a pretty tricky problem to solve on your own, data synchronization and caching and things like that. We have a class at Xamarin University if you're interested in looking at that problem in more depth. But the nice thing about the Azure services is they solve that problem for you pretty elegantly. So if you're relying on this, you can actually just use their implementation and you get a data cache locally. So if the service is unavailable, you still have the data in your app. It's just an older version or stale version potentially of that data. When I make changes, I can do them offline, and then once my service is available, I can synchronize or push those changes back up to the server.
Right, and this is all implemented automatically with this NuGet package. It's really powerful.
All done automatically. And again, we have classes, even free classes, on Azure Data Management. So you can go through those classes if you're interested in figuring out how that works. I did not use the offline support. I kind of did it on my own because I'm never updating this data. So this data is static to me from that perspective. And so again, let me look at the mock pricing details. This was my mock. It implements iPricing details. It has a single method called get price from ID. That really should have an async on the end because it returns a task. But it's fine, and it just returns a random price, which is why every time we look at those things,
it's a little different.
They're different prices. That's all good. So I'm going to use my Azure mobile service instead. So here's my implementation of it. So the first thing is I need to have a representation of the price itself. And so remember, our pricing table has essentially a set of columns on it. It has an ID, and it has the item, which is the name, and it has a price, which is a double. There are other things as well. There's a couple other fields that are in there, but I'm really not that interested in those. So I created a class here that's part of my Azure assembly or project called price entry, and I put in an ID, an item, and a name. ID is required because that's the unique identifier generated by Azure. Notice that I didn't call it prices, and the problem is the name of the class is actually the name of the endpoint that you're interacting with in the Azure service. And so I put on here a JSON object to change the title to be prices so that we're hitting the right table. Otherwise, I'd get an error if I tried to just use this object directly. But this is all done just with JSON, so when it comes down, it's going to deserialize to these objects here. So I can go into my pricing service. And what I can do here then is I'm going to take the ID and I'm just going to trim it to make sure there's nothing on it, just in case Bing Entity Service came back with spaces or something like that.
Clean it up.
I'm then going to go ahead and look to see does this item exist. And again, I've got a list of price entries. So this is what I pulled down last time, and then I have a date time of the last time I updated this. And the idea is I want to locally cache it for 5 minutes.
Perfect.
Because maybe we're going to change those prices eventually, but we're not going to do it all the time. And so I'm going to cache them off for 5 minutes. So as long as we're within that 5-minute frame and I have data, I'm going to look and see, do we have this price or do we have this item, the ID, in my price collection? If we do, then we're going to go ahead and return it.
This is fantastic, right? It's a little bit of less use on your service.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're making decisions based on your needs.
That's exactly right. And so I can choose exactly how I'm going to interact with this. I could hit it every single time if I wanted to. I could cache it off at the time of the app launch.
We could probably do every hour, every day.
Yeah,
Might be reasonable
exactly.
as well.
And that would
right?
be reasonable as well.
Yeah.
And so if it's not present in the collection, then I'm going to assume maybe it's new.
Yes.
All right. Or maybe the 5 minutes has elapsed. So I'm going to go ahead and capture the current time, and then I'm going to create my mobile service client. And I have to pass in the URL. The URL is simply this URL here. So I need to know what this URL is right here. That comes right off my portal.
It's also in the Azure portal as well in the back end.
It is. Yeah. And then I'm going to do a get table. So get table is a generic method. I tell it what we're retrieving, price entry. It looks at the name of the type, and that becomes the table name, unless it has the JSON object or it has a data table attribute on it, or I'm sorry, a data contract attribute on it.
Yes.
So you can use the WCF data contract data member attributes as well to rename it if you choose. I'm then going to go ahead and pull that list. This is asynchronous, and so I'm going to do a toList async, and I'm going to go ahead and configure that await with false, because again, I don't need to process the returning information on the UI thread. I'm going to release the UI thread back to the app and let the app kind of run its animations and things like that, and I'm going to do the remainder of the processing on that thread pool thread.
Fantastic.
Then I'm going to go ahead and look for that price, and if I find the price, I'm going to go ahead and return it, otherwise I'll return 0. So very, very simple. There's not much to this. Let's put a breakpoint here, and let's go back to our services, and let's replace our final service. And so we'll come in here and say service locator, register, iPricing details, comma, garden helper services, Azure dot pricing service. So that'll associate those two. And what's really happening here is I'm just saying, hey, when you see this interface, if you don't know about it yet, create one and return an instance. But it's global, so it only creates one instance and keeps it. Let's run this again. All right, so we're going to launch our app. And by the way, even though we haven't run it on Android, I could run it on Android or on iOS as well.
Absolutely, Xamarin Forms.
I don't have a Mac here, and so what I would have to do is push it up to App Center and then build it on App Center and then use that implementation. But we could do that. Okay, so existing photo. Let's get our orchid here. Let's see what comes back. And what we got from that was, let's see, we got an ID of orchid. Perfect.
Excellent, perfect.
That's what we expected to see.
So our vision service worked.
Yep, so our vision service worked. We got back a result. All right, so notice our results that we got back here. Oh, actually, we're in the wrong thing. We're in...
Right, this is our Bing data.
This is our plant, yeah. Let me go ahead and hit F5. This is actually where we want to be. So here, what we have is the ID is still orchid. That's good. We're going to go ahead and create our mobile service and get our table. Okay, now, we've got our table here. We have 3 entries that came down. Each one's a price entry because that's what matches the table. We have our GUID, we have the rows, we have $4.99, we have Tulip is $2.50, and Orchid is $3.75. And so then we're going to go ahead and compare them. We're going to do a case-insensitive compare. And what we should then get is the Orchid is $3.75.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's totally cool. And so again, let's try that again. Let's say existing photo. Let's pass in our tulips. I can't remember if we got a valid thing back on this one or not. I think it's a tulip. Current price is $2.50.
Perfect.
Sweet. Look at that. So we're getting our custom data that's specific to our domain or our business stored in the cloud. We're able to then retrieve that. We could cache it off. We could potentially update it. We could do it with offline data synchronization. All of these services together. So at this point now, we're using the Vision service, we're using a custom Vision service, we're using Bing Entity Search, and we're using an Azure table in order to create a cohesive app experience that we really want to build.
It's an amazing amount of intelligence without a huge time investment on deploying the services. Really, it's mind-blowing. The opportunity here for making mobile applications intelligently it's mind-blowing.
Yeah, and by the way, just to give you a sign, I realized we didn't build it all from scratch just because of time. Yeah. But I will say that it took me maybe 2 hours to actually build all the service pieces. It was actually pretty trivial to do.
Yeah, the documentation is excellent. The NuGet packages help a lot, and they're they're straightforward services to consume.
Yeah,
really nice.
Yeah, but it can really provide some great intelligence to your apps, and it lets you just take that next level over your competitors.
So we do have a quick question here.
Great.
So Tom asked, can we train the vision model to get better as users use the app to take photos? So
yes.
I would say yes, but I would say be careful allowing your users to tag your photos.
Yeah, that's right. So recall when we looked at that portal for the custom vision service, one of the things that was there was not just the prediction key, but the training key. So there's an API there that you can use to be able to submit new information to say train against this. Now, as part of that, that means that you can then add new bits of information as you discover them. So we can say, hey, they've got a new pet, or the pet's older, or it's maybe something like that. We can then pass it into the vision service to be able to train it. So yes, you can do it programmatically, but yeah, I would caution, just as Adrian said, be careful about allowing your users to decide what it is.
And I'm not sure if the cost has been decided yet, but there may be more costs for doing constant retraining as well. So maybe some balance of how often you want to do that when you're adding data as well. So
exactly.
But the short answer is yes.
Yeah, it's a great question, Tom. Thank you. So we do have some resources before we let you go. First of all, the source code for the app is available at that AKAMS link. We've also got some great resources to introduce you to Azure services that are available, particularly some of the cloud stuff that you saw here. And then we've got great free classes in Xamarin University. So if you're interested in learning how to take advantage of Azure services from any type of app, definitely check into the Xamarin University training. So university.xamarin.com has a bunch of free stuff there on Azure.
Absolutely. And of course, don't forget, there's always MVA, Microsoft Virtual Academy, has great content as well, and of course, lots of amazing videos on Channel 9.
Yeah, in fact, I was just looking at all of the content that's been generated just this week. It's pretty fantastic stuff.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We appreciate you hanging out with us and learning a little bit about integrating Azure Cognitive Services in your mobile app, and we will see you later.
Thank you very much.